From the pages of Wrestling Remembered comes Where Are They Now? Our own Jimmy Pharaoh. Even though Jimmy's missing in action from the show for the past couple months, his chair is just waiting for his return. Currently, Pharaoh is on break from the show and is soaking up the sun with his love in Florida. Ron Shaw. Last we saw Ron, he and Monty buried the hatchet on an episode of Monte and the Pharaoh. Since then, Ron was seen threatening to punch a director after not receiving a role on the senior edition of the Jersey Shore. Currently, he can be seen beating up drunks at his country club. John Cena Sr. John Cena Sr. quickly became a friend of the show during the Thursday Night Wars. Currently, Mr. Cena can be found making his world-famous hot sauce. Daniela Petro. Former co-host Daniela was terminated for breaking the code of conduct of Monte and the Pharaoh and has returned to a life of irrelevance and posting about Matt Riddle on X.com. That's all for this week. Make sure to check out Wrestling Remembered for your weekly dose of wrestling history.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte and the Pharaoh, only seen here out of Indie Music Studios, straight out of Ronkonkoma, Long Island. At the board, probably the greatest producer of all time. Abe, how are you?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
All right, how'd you like the Where They Are Now?
I liked it a lot. I think it was really good. Very creative.
When I think about the family and the years we've been doing the show now, there's been so many great moments. From Jimmy singing with the wrestlers to, they brought up Ron Shaw, the fight with Ron Shaw that literally went on for a year when he freaked out on me. Marty Janetti attacking me. Good God. And helping us out tonight is Bruce from ESO, who helped create Where Are They Now? How are you, Bruce?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
How'd you like that Where They Are Now? I kind of had a good time with it.
Hey, it just came out. It just came out of that whole Wrestling Remembered, the old wrestling magazine look that we were going through, and we've got some other cool stuff coming up. I have a picture of Benny as a pen pal.
Oh boy,
back in, I believe it was 1968.
So and joining us tonight, pro wrestling superstar, my new hero, Mr. Mike Kalua, King Kaluha. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. This sounds like it's going to be interesting. When I saw, first time I saw Ron Shaw in probably 30 years.
Well, King, you mentioned, before we started the show, you're like, you guys are going to get a little independent wrestling history. A little surprise to you. We're a little bit different. I know you've been on a lot of shoot interviews considering, the prestige of your career. But this is a little bit different. We talk about wrestling, but we also talk about world affairs and life in general. So we're really looking forward to hearing about your career and your thoughts as a wrestler. So I'm gonna mention a news item. I'm gonna ask you to weigh in if possible. Tell me what you think. In some case, it's a little bit serious. Some case, a little fun. Paris Hilton explains why she didn't change her son's diapers for the first month. On a recent episode of the reality show Paris in Love, Hilton asked her sister, Nikki Hilton, should I learn how to change his diaper? About her newborn son, Phoenix. Paris Hilton admitted, okay, I'm scared, as she revealed to her sister that she had not yet personally changed her 1 month-old diaper. I said, would you do this on my birthday? But I will try for you, she told her baby boy. Anything for Phoenix. Thoughts on the privileged Paris Hilton having a child and not even learning how to change his diaper.
Well, let me say first off, right off the top, I hate reality TV. Absolutely detest it. All right, it's just all schlock. I mean, honestly, pro wrestling set the bar for that. All right, in terms of reality TV, but I just totally can't stand it. Now, Paris Hilton not wanting to change a diaper. If Paris Hilton was walking down the street, I wouldn't even look twice at her. But I have to say this: when I was about to become a father, I said, you know what? My wife doesn't work. Let her change the diapers. You know what? I ended up changing the diapers, and I got pretty good at it. So, hey, it's no big deal. But I guess for Paris Hilton, it is. So, other than that, I don't care about it.
Well, let me ask you about the first time you changed your child's diaper. What was it like? Were you scared? What were your thoughts?
You know what? It was like, all right, well, you got these. I could imagine if it was back in the day when you had like cloth diapers. But with the Pampers, it was like, okay, throw this one out, put this one on. All right, make sure you don't break her legs, and that's it. You
go.
So it was no big deal.
I think I think the fear comes from. Have you seen what that kid looks like? He's definitely an alien. So who knows what's coming out of it?
Wow, dude, you can't attack Paris Hilton's child. That's just wrong. Look, you come on your first show and you're attacking Paris Hilton's kid. Wow.
Well, okay, am I wrong?
Listen, I think Paris Hilton's a little hot.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't say anything about her.
But that's. I think that you would call that high maintenance.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's of course she can afford the maintenance, but I don't even know who's the baby daddy. I have no clue.
It's funny, Mike. I don't either. I haven't thought about Paris Hilton until this show. When I saw the news article, I was like, "Wow, I had forgotten she even existed."
And I'll forget she existed in 10 minutes from now.
But was this the serious part? I thought you were going to talk. You were going to talk to me about Gaza or the election.
Well, that might be coming up, but I do have a serious part for you. So, the show has known Marty Janetti for quite a long time. I'm sure you know Janetti also. Recently, Marty's ventured into the podcasting himself, like many of the wrestlers have, and they've been highly successful. Marty's show, not so much. But I'm a big fan of Marty as a friend, or I'll try to call him a friend. But on his last show with Rob Van Dam, and he said this to me before, but I don't know why I got so offended. I tried to find the video to show you, but they took it down because they're playing it later tonight. But he basically was saying that if you work a 9-to-5 job, you're a loser. So I'm going to play this little audio that Marty sends to our cast here every so often when he goes on one of his bends. But then I'm going to ask you your thoughts about what do wrestlers really think about the fans or think about people that do a 9-to-5 job? You want to play that audio real quick?
Mutt, mutt, merle, mutt, mutt, merle, mutt, mutt, merle, mutt. Is that the new Jingle Bells? What is wrong with you? Got me singing that mutt, mutt, merle. No, I like that song. I just wrote it the other day, remember? Mutt, mutt, merle, mutt, mutt, merle, mutt, mutt, merle. But it being Christmas, you can, throw the Jingle Bells on it. Mutt, mutt, merle, mutt, mutt, merle, mutt, 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 merle. I don't know, brother. Bruce, something's wrong with you.
All right. So that's Marty for you. So, Mike, on a serious note, I felt like when Marty got around his brothers, right? Because you guys are your little, your family, right? That wrestling family beyond your regular family. I felt his true colors might have come out with his comments. What do wrestlers think about the fans out there? And then do you, because you've got a regular job now and you do very well for yourself, What do you feel about those comments? I was a bit offended, to be honest with you.
Well, I guess think that was Marty being Marty. When you're one of the guys, it's sort of different. We don't take anything personally. At least I don't. People all have their own ways of making money. For me, I've always had a 9 to 5, and that probably hurt me in the beginning part of my wrestling career. But when I became a parent and I had 2 kids that had some developmental issues, I sort of said, you know what, I can't be on the road 360 days out of the year. So always having a regular job was always part of the whole process. But you know what is really good about it is that, okay, so I'm not doing it 360 days out of the year. It's still fresh to me, so I still enjoy doing it. Do I need the money? No, certainly not. Right. But it's just being able to perform. And to me, that's the real joy I get out of it. I'm not going to get paid a hot dog or anything like that. I'll negotiate my price. If I get it, that's fine. If you can't afford me, that's okay. I'll stay home. Right. But having a 9 to 5, that's, right now my house is paid off. I could retire if I want, but I just enjoy what I do, regardless whether it's wrestling or whether it's doing my 9 to 5. Now, as far as the wrestling fans are concerned, I've been around them my entire life, and to me, they're just the audience. So I don't judge them either way. I'm going to be in West Virginia this Saturday, completely different type of audience than what I might get in Philadelphia. But you know what? If they enjoy this sport, that's okay. If they're going to spend money, that's okay. They're going to help pay my bills. If they're going to buy my T-shirts or buy my merchandise, that's fine with me. So I'm pretty much laid back when it comes to like wrestling and the people around it. I'm very tolerant. I understand there's people who are overboard. Some people they're not. It's okay to me. Now, Marty, I actually was supposed to wrestle Marty down at the Baltimore Civic Center in about, I guess it was like 1987, 88. He got stuck in Chicago, and it was a combined NWA AWA show. He never made it, and so I actually only met him once or twice, and I think he was talking like he already knew me. So I'm like, well, not really. I'm supposed to wrestle you once, but you didn't make it. So it's kind of interesting. But Marty's still a good guy. Still a good guy.
And I agree with you. He's always been nice to me. He's always been a great participant in this show. Let me go another way with it then. You're successful outside of, also not just being a wrestler, but outside in your regular life, you're extremely successful. The boys, and again, I'm just a fan who does a show. Bruce is just a fan, but the boys, from what I've experienced in my short time doing this, is they're always trying to work you one way or another. They know you're successful. Have you ever have they ever tried to work you? They know you're doing well, and they ever try to work you out of your money?
No. I think because I've been around so long that there's a level of respect there where they wouldn't try and work me for anything. I'm too smart to be able to fall for anything that would be really disadvantageous to me. So I'm not going to make that mistake. So I think the boys realize that I've been around the block. I'm experienced, and so I'm not going to fall for anything that's that's not in my best interest.
So
in my experience so far with dealing, my limited experiences, it's not only the wrestlers but also the agents. It seems like one's working the next person to work the next person, and it's been quite an interesting experience through that.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone. I would say that if you don't have a regular paying gig to fall back on, you're always trying to sustain yourself and get that next show. And especially once you're done with the big organization, you're trying to get the best deal from as many of these local promoters as you can. And a lot of guys are trying to get as much money as they can. And you have to reach out to some of these new promoters because the promoters turn over. I would say every 2 or 3 years, they'll have some money, they'll promote a few shows, they'll lose their shirt, and then there's somebody else to come along. So as a wrestler, especially one who has a name and can ask for more money, they have to set their next moves up, like 1, 2, 3 at a time, so that they can sustain that work coming in.
No, it's good points. I appreciate you answering these questions. All right, I'd like to thank our own Jimmy Farrow along with his partner Bark Riggs. They make up the band Wisteria Hall. Wisteria Hall sings such great songs as In My Dreams, This Life Not Far Behind, Here Comes the Rain. You can find their music on the Wisteria Hall YouTube page. Go to Spotify, Apple Music, Reverb Nation. If you didn't know it, you are watching Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte The Pharaoh. Catch us on the Monte The Pharaoh YouTube page, Facebook Live page, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, the Monte The Pharaoh Twitch TV page. You also catch us on New York Cable, where you'll see our special guest, King Kaluha, on a reduced version of this interview on channel 115 every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. and Saturday at 11:30 a.m. and channel 20 at Tuesdays at 7 p.m., where over 150,000 viewers see us weekly. We're also part of something called the Intuitive Network. The Intuitive Network, that's IN2ITIVE Network. It's a free app. It's like a startup Netflix. You've got documentaries on there. You've got comedy. You've got music videos. You've got the whole gamut. And the best point, we've been selling this to all our family out there, whoever watches this show. It's for free. Just download it and get to watch all this wonderful programming. And who's leading the way? Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte The Pharaoh. We'll be back after this commercial break where we get to have a long conversation with this pro wrestling superstar, Mike Kalua. We'll be right back. Sir? Manscaped? Have you tried the new equipment that's been sent?
I'm afraid because it says weed whacker. I'm scared.
Maven, Manscaped, what are you thinking about
Love
Manscaped,
it.
dude?
Love it.
What do you use it for?
Necessity. What don't I use it for? Put it this way. The only hair I have on my entire body is these eyebrows.
Yeah.
That you see. These caterpillars racing to the middle of my nose. That's it.
That is it.
That's all I have. And that's all I want.
That's the
So Manscaped is a
You-
must.
We were talking before the show. There's nothing worse than just hair.
Yeah.
Right? Hair on a woman, hair on a man. It's just bad.
Absolutely. And it's the one thing that the older I get, it starts growing more in unwanted areas.
Absolutely.
I hate it.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
Just going to go out there.
Oh, boy.
Go for it.
You're doing a deed.
Yes.
Again, I don't want you to have to admit this because we, as men, we try not to admit this. But if you're going to
Oh,
go
I
do
know
the deed
where-
on a
I
woman,
know where
would you
he's
rather
going.
have her be hairless or a little hair, racing stripe, or
Racing stripe.
full retro bush?
Well,
Racing stripe.
Retro Bush is out.
Yes, thank you.
Retro Bush is out.
Yeah.
I don't mind a small, well manicured landing strip. Every now and then, if it's completely, and I'm talking like baby's ass bald, then I start, where is that pedophilia line? I don't want to wander into that.
That's
Very
interesting.
interesting.
Like that.
I never thought about that. You're a smart dude. Holy shit.
So if the landing strip is clean enough for the plane to go in smoothly, you're cool with that?
If the landing strip has, like I said, well manicured,
Yeah,
you can see both sides. It's not
Like blinking lights on both sides of that
I
landing?
just don't. I don't want. I don't want the shrubbery going off into unwanted areas on that as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Oh, look
but-
what you found. Ooh.
I got to be honest though. Hey, the older I get though, I don't think I can be as
I found it! I found
Have
it!
you ever gone down there and she slowly brings down the underwear? Then
What is
retro? Just,
Absolutely.
You're like, whoa!
Wow,
Yeah,
like,
I'm
like
46,
it
of
pops
course.
out?
Do you like walk out or what do you do?
No, I muster through. I muster up the courage to get
He's a
through.
trooper. He's a trooper. Gotta give him an A.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
hear you.
There you
Listen,
go.
I couldn't
Super
say.
Bush.
I couldn't say. Well, if you have the same beliefs as Maven, does Manscaped could help you?
Absolutely.
The weed whacker.
Absolutely.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I may have to, go in a room, close the door, and hang out with the weed whacker for a little while.
Yeah, I think you're a retro guy, aren't you?
I like 70s adult films, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
But
only
with that,
Ron
we're going to take a
Jeremy,
quick
Batman.
commercial break, and we'll be
Anyway.
back with this wrestling icon, Maven.
We will see you in a drop kick second.
Drop kicks. All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte the Pharaoh, where we have the great King Kaluha. Thank you, sir, for joining us, sir. How are you? First, Mike, I got to tell you, we had Ricky Steamboat on last week, and I cannot believe how much you look like Ricky Steamboat. I'm like, this guy's a dead ringer from Ricky Steamboat. Number two, I can't believe how good you look. Man, you're a good-looking man, and what are you doing to keep in shape and stay that good-looking? What's going on there?
Oh, geez, you're flattering me now. I'm turning red, but I'm too tan. But the funny thing about it, you should say Ricky Steamboat. Back in, are you familiar with the name Mark Tendler?
I am, sir.
Okay, so he used to run shows out in Long Island, and he would sort of take some of us, and they would throw like a big star's name around us. All right, so one guy, I don't know if you remember Lou Fabiano, he was Bruno Sammartino Jr., and I was Mike Steamboat Kalua. So I'm like, okay, if it sells tickets, it sells tickets. But it is funny. I worked an angle with his brother, Vic Steamboat, up in New England for Mario Savoldi's group, and we had the Hawaiian versus Hawaiian match. But yeah, I actually, I'm trying to keep it together. I'm in the gym 6 days a week, no supplements. Do I go in the tanning booth? Yeah. I tell people fat looks better when it's darker. So that's how I keep up with it, and that's why I'm still wrestling. If I look sloppy, in my opinion, yeah, it's time to hang it up. But right now, I'm in extra innings.
Well, look at you, man. Because I was just thinking, like, man, this guy's in great shape, and we're close in age. You're a little bit older, but I'm like, I don't think I could take my shirt. I don't even take my shirt off in my bedroom with my wife. I'm so embarrassed, much less in a wrestling ring. Kudos to you, man, for keeping in shape like that. And I think being as fat as I am, I think I got to start tanning too. That might be the key. What do you think, Bruce?
There you go. That's what it is. If that's the key, I'm with you. I'll be in the tanning booth tomorrow.
Hit the tanning booth and get that manscaping product you had on the commercial.
There you go. Mike, shockingly enough to me today, no one has realized that today is the anniversary of Pearl Harbor, right? I have not one person has mentioned that to me, which personally was disappointing, which we could talk about the state of the country after this question. Mm-hmm. Your father was a World War II vet. I think it's a good opportunity for you to share your relationship with your dad and your mom, and maybe, give the flowers to your father for serving this wonderful country.
Well, yeah, my father was a 23 or 27 year vet of the Navy. Of course, he would have been old enough to be in World War II. For a while, he was Admiral Halsey's steward before the war. All right, so if you know anything about military history, Admiral Halsey was a pretty high up there guy. So, but my father, he was born in the Philippines when the Philippines was still in American territory, and like many of his friends, ended up joining the Navy, coming over here, marrying a white woman, my mom, and so my dad. If you would see my dad, you would say, "No way, was he my dad? Was he my dad?" He was about 5'1", maybe 130 pounds. Quiet, great person. There's not anybody that had anything ever, nothing bad to say about him. So when in his older age, when I was seen with him, and they would see me, and I'm like, about 6 foot, back in the day, about 240 pounds. They said, he's not his kid. But yeah, that's the way it was. And a military family. I was born in born in a naval hospital. All of my health care was at a naval at naval hospitals wherever I had to go. And so that's how it was on my father's side. Now, my mother's side, my mother was more the Spitfire, so I think I have more of her personality. But one of the funniest stories that I have about my mom, she hated wrestling. She hated wrestling. And so one time she told me, I was at church and I was saying prayers so that you would stop wrestling. And I said, Mom, you could pray for something more important like world peace or world hunger, not me stopping wrestling, because I don't see myself stopping wrestling. So I was like, oh, okay. So, but Mom actually went to one show. And this is a funny story because Steve Carino was promoting this show in Philadelphia. And so my mom was living in Philadelphia. And I stopped at her house before the show just to say hi, and I said, "Yeah, I'm wrestling down this, down the not too far away." So, and I'm just joking with her. I said, "You want to come?" And she said, "Yeah." And I'm like, "What? Are you kidding me? You've never seen me wrestle." So she came, and Steve and I were pretty tight. After the match, and of course I'm evil. I'm a bad guy, and so Steve grabs the mic, and he was promoting the show, and he said, "Let's let you know that this is King Kalua's mom. She has not seen him wrestle ever." And at the time, I was about maybe 15 years into the business, and she said, and she introduced him. She introduced her, and she got a big pop from the crowd. And I'm saying, isn't that ironic? So yeah, that's the story with my family and wrestling.
When you go to your parents and you're like, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to be a pro wrestler. What do they say to you? Like, because even back then, right, wrestling, kind of was that dirty little secret. So what did they say to you?
I don't think they knew, because I wasn't living at home when I decided to become a wrestler. So I don't think they knew. But once, I guess in the mid '80s, when I started doing some work with the AWA and was on ESPN, and my brother would be watching it, then they would see their son on TV. So I guess that's when she started saying her prayers about me stopping wrestling.
So you never broke it to them.
No. And that's sort of like, oh, okay. Well, and then after a while, my other siblings and my nieces and nephews, they thought it was cool, because, hey, Uncle Michael's a wrestler. but she was never really fond of it. But all of a sudden, I would go over there, and she says, "Would you have an 8x10? Someone down the street wants one." So I said, "Okay." So that's the way it worked out.
Mike,
So recently, go ahead,
hold
Mike.
on 1 second, Bruce. Sorry. Before we get into the wrestling push, because I want to ask you about ESPN and the AWA. Being that your father served, what's your feelings about the state of the country right now?
It's sad that we're so divided. I'm a moderate, but it's sad to see how people are in two completely different directions, and nobody wants to try and meet in the middle. And unfortunately, it's probably going to take some type of disaster or some type of external conflict to get people to forget about all this silliness of being completely on the left or completely on the right. I'm somebody who tends to stay right in the middle. Like, compromise is the only way you're going to get anything done. And it's sort of sad to see where we're at because we're sort of in a gridlock. Nothing gets done. I don't like politicians myself because no one's ever left the Congress poor. So I just see there's a lot of people out for themselves, and they're not setting a good example. And again, some of the people just need to really just sort of turn down the rhetoric and just say, okay, where do we have some commonality, as opposed to just staying in the corners. But that's going to be a hard thing to change, and it's going to take a 9/11 type of event to get people to sort of say, hey, we're all Americans. Let's just work together and solve the problems we have.
Mike, I hope you don't get mad at this comment, but I got to tell you, you look like a politician. You got the looks. You could sell. I think you could sell, man. I think you'd be all right.
Yeah. And then I'll be lining my pockets, and I'll be walking out. I'll be like the guy from New York who got kicked out. Except most of my stuff will be true.
Good stuff, Mike. Go ahead, Bruce. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. So, well, like you said, we're gonna now we can get on to some of the wrestling portion of your career. So, about a year ago, we had DC Drake in studio. What can you tell us about him? I know he had a lot of influence on your early startup in wrestling.
Oh yeah, Don's a great guy. He was pretty much booking the shows that we were running out of Easton, and then he also became involved with this with I forget what letters it was, but it was it had some syndicated TV. And we worked a lot in New Jersey, New York, actually a little PA, and Virginia. So Don was always a good guy, and he wasn't your typical wrestler. I think he was really big in his career was social work, and that was it. When you talked with Don, you knew it wasn't like, say, your typical wrestler. So the last time I saw Don was at a reunion show in a Philadelphia suburb, and he still looked good. And yeah, I mean, I'm friends with him on Facebook. We'll correspond a little bit here and there, but as far as indie wrestling, he had a tremendous influence on people, and he gave a lot of folks breaks.
Yeah, when he was in studio, he came across about being very intelligent, right? Very well spoken. And then I'm also friends with him on Facebook. He seems to really understand the business aspect of wrestling for sure.
Well, yeah, he did. And again, we used to wrestle in this VFW hall in Easton, where they had to schlep the ring up to the second floor But he got things going. And as far as like sort of developing that sort of East Coast independent territory, he was fairly well positioned, and I think he did understand the business really well. He got involved with some guys who were not wrestling people, and I think he was able to work with them from the business side, and I think they trusted him because he did have business savvy in addition to understanding the whole wrestling business.
So during that same interview, we had somebody who may have taken a couple too many shots to the head. He calls himself the Godfather of the Extreme, Damian Kane. What can you tell us about him? I know you had some runnings in with him too.
Oh yeah, Damian was my manager for a long time in that group. He was really good. He was an indie guy who was well traveled, like a real early indie guy. And so most of the times when I first broke in, I was a baby face, and so I would wrestle him, and I learned a lot in terms of pacing. But then when I started working more on the dark side, he ended up becoming my manager, and I think we worked really well together. He was good from a manager standpoint because he didn't want to overshine the people he was managing. So it was he knew how to manage. So he really knows the business really well. I haven't seen him in years, but he still looks pretty good.
Do you think, again, a lot of wrestling fans are these mainstream guys, obviously from TV, and as we've been doing the show, you start to realize all these other nuances within the business and all these like other groups and these other areas. Do you think, like the two that Bruce just mentioned, do you think if they were given the opportunity, including yourself, you could have played in the big time?
Oh, sure. No doubt about it. The people say, well, do you ever regret that not happening? I said, well, I don't know how that would have turned out. Of course, everybody would like to have been there and gotten the break, and sometimes it's the luck of the draw. It certainly helps what your last name is. That's a big influence. So certainly Don and Damian certainly could have been players in that space. As far as myself is concerned, I don't know if I would take well to working some type of gimmick that wasn't me. So it's sort of like I like the independence of working in indie wrestling, right? Because I can call my own shots in terms of what my personality is, what my look is, what my gear is. So, am I heartbroken that didn't turn out? No.
When was the moment that you decided that, hey, I'm going to give this professional wrestling thing a shot? I know you were an athlete in high school, good hockey player, good football player. But when does something click that you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this wrestling thing?
Well, that's a funny story. I was a high school football player, played ice hockey in college, and so I spent after college I started spending more time in the gym, and I've always liked wrestling, but I liked it from a different perspective than just a regular fan. And so there was a sports agent at my gym who said, well, why don't you look into getting into it? And I said, And I always thought I was too small. But at the time, I was, say, about maybe 230, 235. And I ended up meeting Larry Sharp. And, this is like early Monster Factory. And so he said, no, you have the size for it. And he said, come over. And, he told me what the financial side of it was. And I said, okay. And then that meant I would have had to go over to Jersey because I was living outside of Philadelphia at the time. And I'm like, that's a haul. And then simultaneously, I met another guy who had a little bit of an indie career going, and he was opening up a school near me, very close. And I said, all right, well, what is he charging? So he was charging a lot less, no contract involved. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go with him. Now, I was trained in a stationary boxing ring, so the training was hard. The first day I went to practice, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this because I was just trying to fall in a just basically almost on the floor. And so that's sort of how it happened. The second time I went back, we grappled around a little bit, and I said, okay, this sounds like this might work out. And, I think Larry, really wanted me to go with him. And I think with Larry, he probably would have opened up a lot more doors. But then I would have had to make that full-time commitment. I was like, okay, you have to go to Tennessee or you have to go to Texas. And so I broke in probably just before Bam Bam Bigelow did. So I saw him like setting up rings, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to set up rings and then go on the cards. So I stayed with the guy that I was with and sort of charted my path from there.
Now, you said you always liked wrestling. What wrestler turned you on to pro wrestling that you're like, I like this because of this particular person?
Well, the person that I liked in terms of a personality at that age was Dusty Rhodes. With the boots and just his whole presentation. The other one that really, I think, as far as maybe even style is concerned, in the ring, the person that I liked probably the most was Don Morocco. And I just liked the way that he worked with the crowd. I liked the way that he worked in the ring. I liked his pace, and so that's, I think, out of all the wrestlers in terms of style, that's what I think I tried to sort of pattern myself after. So he was a classic. I got to have one of my birthdays over in Hawaii. I got him to come out and had a few drinks with him, and the guy's massive still. But he was always entertaining. I don't think I've ever seen him in a bad match.
Now, you mentioned before that you thought you were a bit small to break into this. Obviously, you're a big dude. Did you hit the gas at all to try to get it to that level?
That's one thing that I could hang my hat on is that I never went on the gas, because I knew that if I did, then I'd have to stay on it, because people don't want to see you like jacked and looking great, and then now, all right, what happened? All right, you're off the gas. And the long-term effects of being on the gas is not good. And so my body really wasn't like the selling features. There's some guys who they're all about their body, but when they get in the ring, they don't do a whole lot. So I didn't rely on my body. I just wanted it to be adequate enough to pull it off looking like a regular wrestler. So I was never like the bodybuilder type. I was more like the old-fashioned barrel-chested wrestler.
So you mentioned the AWA, ESPN. So I'm assuming you were still doing the wrestling part-time and you had a regular job. If I'm wrong, please correct me. How do you get involved with Vern's organization? And at some point, you're wrestling on ESPN, which is a big deal. Are you thinking, oh, man, I might have to? So I guess the question is, How did you get involved? And then were you thinking, I might have to do this full time since I'm working this organization if this thing really catches fire?
Well, I mean, that's where I thought that's where I thought things were going to happen. I was not married at the time. And this was a setup by Mark Tedler, the guy that I was speaking about. He was the one that got us hooked up, and I think Gary Juster was like the agent. And we did a show, and it was at it was in Paterson, New Jersey. It was the first TV taping, and it was weird because it was a 9:30 start in the morning. So Blackjack Lanza was the agent working the locker room, and then I was there as enhancement talent, and he said, he figured I'm a baby face, the way I look, and I said no, I'm a heel, and so I worked the first match with the High Flyers. Okay, so that was Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell. The second hour, I worked with Rick Martel. The third hour, I worked with Kurt Hennig.
Wow!
And the feedback from the guys, I guess, back to Vern was really good. So they always called me back. They had me bring people. He said, "Do you have anybody else that could, that could work?" All right, so I brought people in, and so I thought things were going to happen there. Vern liked me because I always threw a few token amateur moves in the matches, so he could put them over on TV. So I knew what to do from that perspective. But when the AWA folded. And again, and they did have me do a few house shows down at the I think it was the Baltimore Civic Center. I'm like, oh, okay, this could be it. They like me in the office, and then they moved out to Vegas, and then they folded. So that was that. But it was good exposure because what happened? I was working. I worked a few matches with Sergeant Slaughter. And he started doing indie shows, and I started getting booked with him. And I was working top of the card on these indie shows with Slaughter. And I kind of think it was probably him that put the word on to say, hey, is this guy Kalua on the card? Put me with him. And so it did grease the skids for me getting more indie work. So I can't complain about that experience at all.
Well, I love the fact that you worked Vern. So you're talking about working. You knew that Vern liked amateur style, so you worked him. You kind of tricked him, huh?
Well, you know what? It's part of my repertoire. Not used that often, but I pulled it out. We'll pull it out of the box.
What was an AWA payday like?
Well, it was you couldn't live off of it, but for me, it was all right on the indie side. And the thing is, it was funny. I thought, when I worked at the Baltimore Civic Center, hey, I'm going to get a bigger payday. Same thing. But now I don't know if anybody was getting a taste of that, because the guy that Mark who sent us down there, I didn't know if he was getting a little bit off the top too, because hey, I'm giving you some talent here, or if he was just doing it just to give us a break. All right, but either way, though, like I said, it really wasn't so much about the money. It was really about the exposure.
I'm going to jump ahead, and then Bruce is going to take over. On the table is Todd is God, right? Great book. Todd's been on the show twice. Good man. You worked for Todd. At least I think he's a good man. I may not know any different. I've heard otherwise. I'm going to ask you, how did you get involved with Todd, and what type of person was Todd with you?
Todd was great with me. I didn't stick around when the ECW really blew up into what it became. But back when Todd first started, the folks that were doing the booking for him was AJ Petruzzi and a guy named Larry Winters. So that's how I got involved with them and how I got involved with the ECW. And one thing came after another, and then I didn't get booked as much, and then I wasn't pushing it. I wasn't a big fan of that whole style. Again, I'm more of old school, so some of the stuff that they were doing really wasn't my style, and if it drew that type of audience, they wouldn't necessarily like my style anyway. So it was sort of, it was nothing negative that I had with Todd. We just sort of went, I just wasn't getting booked anymore, which was okay because I had bookings elsewhere. Last time, in fact, I seen Todd was at Larry Winter's funeral. But yeah, I have nothing bad to say about Todd. He seemed like a good guy.
Did he know the business, in your opinion?
He was learning. At the time I met him, he was learning. All right, and so by the time that he got to the point of the real ECW period, by that time, I guess he had smartened up or thought he had smartened up. But at the time that I met him, he was still green to the business.
Bruce, you're on.
Okay. Oh, sounds good. So earlier you were mentioning that you got to work with Sergeant Slaughter on the indies through a bunch of circuits. Most people don't realize that on the indie circuits you can actually get to see some major stars as they're competing in between federations and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Over the course of time, who was the best of? Well, who did you enjoy working with the most?
I did really like working with Slaughter because he was so over as a babyface, and for me, it was so much easy. It was so easy for me to work with him. Another person who I found it easy to work with and I got booked with was Jimmy Snuka. Again, with him being so over with people, it just, for me, it was so easy. The other folks I worked with that I really enjoyed working with, Tito, Santana was good.
I hear that one a lot.
I'm talking about the older guys now. I actually had 2 matches with Superstar Billy Graham, and he was good to work with. Work with Jules Strongbow. Jules was good to work with. I didn't think there was too many people who I didn't really say, "Wow, no, that was really." That was bad.
Into my next. Well, I was getting into my next question. Was there anybody who just was so over, but when you got him into the ring, you were just like, "Oh man, this guy shouldn't be here."
Well, you know what? In my role, it was really to really work with these guys and get the most out of them. And so I can't really say if there was anybody that said, "Oh man, this guy's a real dog." There are some guys that did more than others, but for the most part, I really can't say anything bad about the guys I worked with. I'm being a politician now, so.
Well, I got to put you on a spot now, Mike. So it's like, you're working with all these guys, and some of them are coming out of the big time, and now they're going to more the indie route. I'm sure that's got to be a little tough on them in some sort of way. But, I mean, let me ask you this. Did anyone ever treat you less than because they felt they were better than?
No, I never felt that way with anybody who I worked with. There was I think the one match that I worked with, I forget. I worked with that guy Test, who is no longer with us, and I didn't think he really knew who I was. So, I don't think I got as much out of him as I could have. But again, he had just come back from being hurt too. So a lot of guys who are the guys who have these big runs, who didn't know who I was and didn't know my background, and even guys who do know me, some of these guys are afraid of working with guys who they don't know. I had a match with Steve Williams, Dr. Death. This was in this reunion show, and guy by the name of Sal Conti booked me with him, and he was concerned because this was his first match back from having cancer, and he's like, "Well, is this guy all right?" Meaning me, and he said, "No." He said, "You're in good hands." So, and it worked out fine.
How does it feel? Because this is the general theme of this whole thing, right? That every one of these guys, when they finally get to wrestle with you, they hold you in such high esteem because you can work with everybody. How does that make you feel, even this being a part-time gig, that you're so good at it that all these guys love you?
Well, it does make you feel good. But I think it's a testament for my longevity in this business. When I tell people, yeah, I've worked with superstar Billy Graham and Dory Funk Jr. and Nick Bockwinkel, they're like, "Wow, you work with those guys?" And so, I think it does make you feel good when you're held in that esteem. And now. I'm at the point now where I'm wrestling these young guys who are coming online, and it's almost like role reversal. Even though I'm not a big name, they know that I've been around and have a reputation in the indies, and it's like, wow, I'm going to wrestle you, and I'm like, hey, kid, someday you're going to have that opportunity. And so it's almost like 360. It just comes right back around. But it does feel good to be able to have that perceived reputation.
Now, you just brought up you're working with these younger guys. How hard is that for you, right? Because you grew up in a different time, and the game has changed with these younger wrestlers, right? Number one, they're much smaller. Number two, they're spot jumping all over the place. Mm-hmm. How does that feel for you, as number one, being a professional, and number two, working with them?
Well, for me, it's a challenge. And it's a challenge that's what I enjoy. But I still work old school. I work with the crowd. I tell people I blow up more hollering at people in a rest hold than I do when I'm running a spot, right? Because I want there to be noise constantly, even if it's me chattering, and if it's me bantering with somebody in the front row or whatever. But I've had young guys come up to me and watch my match, and again, they weren't wrestling; they were watching from behind, and they're saying, "Oh, sir, I really want to wrestle with you someday. I think that's so amazing, the stuff that you do." And it's because people don't wrestle that way anymore. So I'm really like a novelty, because like you're saying, first of all, the guys are smaller. And even at my age, I'm in probably better shape than, sometimes 90% of the guys on the card. So I have that. I have my ring gear is usually second to none. And my ability to get heat from the crowd is, the young kids don't know how to do that. And so I still, at my age, consider my work rate fairly high. So the young guys are amazed by that, and I think a lot of them are like, "Oh yeah, can I get booked with you?" And I said, "Don't talk to me." But again, even the crowd is not used to seeing what I bring to the table, and so I don't want to say it's like a midget match, but it almost is, because it's like, wow, well, what's this? This is different. This is different than the product that I'm seeing through the rest of the card. And so, that's what I think. That's what keeps me going.
Did you ever
So, I know
wrestle
that
any of these younger kids, and they ended up in AEW or anything like that, or you wrestled some kid, you're like, you know what, this kid's got it.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of kids that that I know are pretty good and have some talent, and I know they could go somewhere. Uh, Thing is, it's funny. Sometimes I tell people I have CTE because I've been wrestling so long, and so I can't remember some of these young guys who I've wrestled. And I'll see them in the locker room. So yeah, I wrestled you like 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 8 years ago. And there's some of them I know they're probably in WWE now. And certainly some that probably are in the AEW. And it's just I don't remember wrestling. But yeah, there's a lot of good young kids that are out there that I wrestle now. It's just that they're not that big.
Mm. The one thing I'm also impressed about is, most people wear makeup, Road Warriors, Ultimate Warrior. You use stickers, right? Is that what you use on your face? What made you come up with that idea?
Well, when I was, I guess maybe it was when I first started. I went to a Halloween party, and there was this during Halloween. There was a company that made these stickers, and they were painted up. And I said, I'm going to wear these as like face paint at the Halloween party. So then I said, you know what? I said, it would be interesting to see if I could wear these in the ring. And so first show that I wrestled with them on, I think it was a show that Alpha, the Samoan, was running. And I stuck them on, and they stayed on. And I'm like, well, this is pretty cool. Because normally when people have paint, that comes off in the first 4 or 5 minutes. And by the end of the match, it's totally gone. And so I'm like, well, the face paint thing really isn't me, but this is pretty cool. And so I wrote to the company, and the company sent me a whole bunch of them. And then I finally ran out. So I found some place at a happy hour, and I was talking to some woman who worked for a company that made this medical paper, and it had the same texture as the stickers that I was wearing. So I got these paint pencils that you would get for T-shirts, and I made my design, and I started wearing those, and they stayed on. I would say I've been wearing these since about 1988. I think I've only lost 2 that fell off. And so if I had to paint my face, I wouldn't do it. This is too much work, and it comes off. And if it's in the summer, forget it. It's gonna just melt right off. Even trying to paint it is a problem. But these things, it takes me a while to paint them, but I put them on. It takes a minute or less. Just peel them off, put them on. When I'm done, I take them off. I can actually wear them a second time if I want to, but I can match them exactly to the trunks that I'm wearing. And if you're far away, you can't tell it's a sticker. You just think it's paint.
Did you trademark that? Were you able to trademark that?
No, well, not really, because the company that I bought them from apparently probably already did. So I'm just like, okay, someone's going to steal it at some point, but no one has. So okay, I'm coming down to the to the last lap, and no one stole them yet, so I'm okay.
I guess my question is, good-looking guy, right? I know you were a heel. Why'd you feel like you wanted to cover your face?
It was just something else, just to make me look different. One of the things I tell people, that the young kids who sometimes I'll go and train people, or I'll do a seminar here and there. One thing I tell them is you got to be different. You have to stick out, because wrestlers now, there's so many schools. The wrestlers are a dime a dozen. what makes you stick out? What makes you different? And so that's one of the reasons why I wear that. Now that I'm older, I'm not as good looking though. There's gray hair and stuff like that.
Wrestlers dime a dozen, podcaster does. The whole world is in an uproar. Anyone could be anything anymore, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Mike, we're going to hit you with a final question. I want to again thank you for joining the show. It's an honor to have you on, and thank you. Bruce, final question for the great King Kalua.
All right. So you've trained many wrestlers, including a friend of ours, Tom Brandy, and Steve Carino. How do you feel about their successes and accomplishments? And do you think that they ended up outshining what you've ended up doing?
Oh yeah, I think they both made out much better than I did in terms of what they've been able to experience. Tom and I are best friends. We were best men at each other's weddings, so I'm really tight with Tom. And Tom really, I just wish he got a better deal with WWE because this guy had everything. He had the looks, he had the body, he understood wrestling, he was a good athlete, and the way he got used. Again, last name, didn't have anybody behind him, so he didn't get as much traction as I thought he deserved. I remember watching him wrestle Dwayne Johnson, and he was sort of bringing Dwayne Johnson along, and I'm like, oh man, I said he should be getting over. So Tom's really good. Again, we still wrestle on cards together. We still travel together. As far as a wrestler and someone who I wrestled with, I haven't wrestled with anybody more than with Tom. Now Steve, I love Steve. Steve is such a devotee to the business. I mean, he respects wrestling. And I got to wrestle him when he was just breaking in, and I think his early career, he really appreciated having the ability to wrestle with an experienced guy, because at the time he was getting a good push, but he was working with like a lot of guys from the schools and the guys who really weren't experienced. And so when he got in the ring with me, he got to see what it was like to not worry about all the spots, but worry about what this overall match looked like altogether. So he's really respectful of the business, and I think he's doing really well with where he's at now, especially as a trainer, because I think that's something that he's cut out to do.
Mike, if we were friends, I could have helped you with your career. I would have named you King McMahon. Mike, I want to thank you for joining us again. It's an honor.
Right.
I want you to have a wonderful weekend and keep on wrestling. Thank you for what you've done for this industry and the fans.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot, guys, for having me. This was fun. I appreciate it. Hopefully somewhere along the line we can do something again. I really had a good time.
Well, you were fantastic. Thank you again, Mike.
Okay, thank you. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Happy holidays.
Good night.
Happy holidays. Bruce, what'd you think?
Hey, for not feeling well, you had a lot of input on that one.
I know. It's just
it just kept flowing. I'm like, hey, all right. I had a couple other questions I wanted to ask him, but we'll get them next time.
Too funny. Hey, you know what? That's called passive-aggressive behavior, Bruce. You know that, right? You know what that is, right?
Yeah. No, I got.
Hey, listen. Can't have gaps in the show, man. When you have your window to ask a question and it's Dead air.
I kept getting over. Every time I went to open my mouth, you were ready to go. So you were there the whole time.
Can't wait.
So
Can't
it was
wait a
great
second,
time.
brother. Can't wait a second. But you did a good job, man. Bruce, thank you for helping out tonight.
Hey, Mike, thank you. We'll, I'm sure I'll talk to you the next day or so. Hey, everybody, make sure you check out Wrestling Remembered it's going to be Wednesday. We're not sure what time we're going to go live, but it will be sometime on Wednesday. And don't forget to check out the 30 True Crimes with Benny and the Bad Girl, Monte and the Pharaoh show, and everything else on the network.
And you know what? It just keeps growing. And I want to thank everybody out there. We'll see you guys next week where we have
Twin Bill. I forgot Twin Bill.
What's that?
The Twin Bill's the other one, right? I keep forgetting to mention that one.
Yeah, that's it. Why do you forget the Twin Bill? You do that on purpose? I notice it's not on your background either. You just don't like that show.
Well, I don't have Dan and Benny. I don't have Dan and Benny up here either. But I got to get them. We have to space this out, you know.
So anyway,
listen, I threw this together quick.
Before we go, I know you made it about yourself, but the question was, what did you think about the great King Kaluha? That's what I wanted to ask, but you made it all about yourself. So.
Hey, well, what better subject? No, right. King Kaluha was awesome. That was a great interview. He was a lot of fun. Really, I wasn't as familiar with his work until I started doing some research this afternoon, and I came up with so much stuff. I mean, I have a page worth of information on him here, and yeah, he's done a lot. If you really want to learn about somebody who's been there and done that, that's a man to check out.
I got to tell you, in this wrestling world, there's so many, I don't want to call it secrets, right? But if you're not, if you're like me, right, you don't know, you haven't really ventured into the indies too much. When you start finding out guys like Mike, it's amazing how important they are for the industry. You know what I'm saying? And again, I don't...
Look at his influence.
Well, I don't think it could be understated, Bruce, that this is a guy that all these other guys come and they wrestle him and they want to continue to work with him because he's that good. It's amazing how he doesn't get that opportunity to work for one of the major federations, No,
especially being up here in the Northeast back in the prime time. I mean, they were going really just between Allentown, Poughkeepsie, Westchester, Long Island, and Boston. I mean, that was pretty much the work.
Well, again, amazing interview, great guy, very impressive. And I'm even more impressed he didn't hit the gas.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a big dude.
Everybody
man,
in that era.
All right, next week I want everybody to join us. We've got Keith Elliott Greenberg. He gets to meet Monte and the Pharaoh. That's going to be a little bit different, huh?
That should be a lot of fun. I can't wait to hear about the creation of that encyclopedia and some of the other behind the scenes stuff. He seems to be really well liked by a lot of wrestlers, and it's going to be fun to hear some of his stories.
Got to tell you, man, it's great to be part of something like this. And again, as always, I want to tell everybody out there, thank you again for joining us on Thursday nights. It's an honor for you guys to join us every week, and so much love to each and every one of you. We'll see you next week. Love you all. Bruce, send us out.
All right. Until next week, we will see you later.